Hey, welcome back to 7 Steps to Smile. Today we're talking about the mental bandwidth problem. That's the idea that when you're under stress, whether that's financial, emotional, academic, work, or maybe something in your relationships, your mind allocates so much processing power to the threat that you temporarily have less cognitive space for everything else. We'll learn why intelligent people make poor choices during stressful periods, how scarcity hijacks your thinking, how to build slack to prevent cognitive exhaustion, and how you can protect your mental bandwidth before it collapses. Have you ever tried to study, work, or make a big decision on a day when you're so stressed about the future? And suddenly everything feels 10 times harder. You read the same sentence over and over again and it just doesn't click. You forget obvious things. You get irritable and you snap at people. You make choices that you'd normally never make. That's not a personality flaw. That's not a problem in the morals of who you are. That's a mental bandwidth problem. I share this with you because I want to show you that the mental slowness or the forgetfulness or the impulsive decisions that you make under stress aren't personal failures. They're not something that you need to take to heart and blame yourself for. They're predictable cognitive consequences. They're part of a system that you can understand, you can predict, and more importantly, you can prevent. So why does this matter? Well, like I said, most people blame themselves for underperforming when they feel overwhelmed. They blame themselves for going wrong or choosing incorrectly. They think that they lack discipline or they aren't trying hard enough or they aren't smart. But research shows that cognitive function can drop by 13 IQ points under scarcity conditions. That's the same as going a full night without sleep. Basically, that means that when you're feeling stressed to that extent, it's like not sleeping for the night and then trying to go out about your day. It's not that your brain is broken. It's not broken. It's just overloaded. This reframing refocuses and removes shame, the shame that we load onto ourselves. And it gives us a path forward. It gives us something that we can do. But before I get into that, let's dive into what's the problem. Let's explain the problem, the theory behind it. So, what is mental bandwidth? Mental bandwidth is, if you think about yourself as a computer, your mental bandwidth is your RAM. It's the available cognitive capacity that you have in the short term. It includes your focus, your memory, problem solving, emotional regulation, and your decision making. When your bandwidth is full, performance drops. No matter how capable you are, no matter how smart you are, this is for everybody. But why does this happen? So I mentioned scarcity, right? The big reason why this happens is the scarcity effect. From research, when something feels scarce, if that's money, time, approval, maybe control or certainty, the brain becomes hyper-focused on that threat. The threat of not having enough, the threat of scarcity. This is deeply evolutionary. We go into resource accumulation mode, and this reduces the capacity for anything else. We just focused on not having enough of this thing, right? And the scarcity creates mental tunnels. You obsess over the immediate problem, and you lose awareness of all the longer term consequences. For example, let's say you stress about deadlines, right? You have work to do and you stress about the deadlines. This reduces your cognitive abilities. It reduces your decision making, problem solving, your focus, and your memory. This leads to increased procrastination. You procrastinate, you're not getting the job done, you're not getting the work done, and the deadline is coming up. So that leads to more stress. It's a feedback loop. Or maybe there's financial strain, financial pressure, and you make a bad decision and you take a bad loan, and now you have extra fees, and now there's worse financial strain. This isn't because you're stupid, even though it might feel like that, it might seem like that to an outsider, but it's just because so much of your mental bandwidth is being taken up by the stress and the strain that you don't have the cognitive capability to make a better decision at that point in time. Maybe you have academic stress. Maybe you're worried about school or a course, and now you don't have the emotional regulation to go to bed on time, or you don't have the focus or the memory or the problem solving. And suddenly you're mentally fatigued and you don't study as well. The quality of studying drops, your results drop, your performance drops, and that leads to even more academic stress. It's another feedback loop. The irony of this entire situation and why it's so frustrating to so many people is that the moment you need good decision making is the exact moment that your brain is the least capable. I know for certain that there's so many people out there that will relate to this, and I definitely do. I mean, as a university student, I know that your mental bandwidth is tested all the time. In fact, if you think about a final year university student, they often say that they go through the most, right? And if a final year university student does well every single year up until their last year, and now suddenly they're failing tests, it's not because they don't understand the material. They're smart, they know what they're doing, they got there. But it's because they're trying to study while worrying about finances or family expectations and future plans. They're working twice as hard, but they're performing half as well. But then maybe the mid-year break comes along and there's a week where the stress lifts and they're at home and they're more relaxed, and suddenly they're productive again and they can get to work and they can catch up a little bit. The intelligence was always there, right? It's just that the bandwidth wasn't. Okay, so we've spoken about this mental bandwidth problem. We've identified what it is and how it affects us on a day-to-day basis. So what do we do about it? Well, thankfully, it's not all lost. It's not all doom and gloom. There's a 5-step practical framework that I'm going to share with you to combat the mental bandwidth problem and help take control of your decisions and your life. Okay? So, step 1. Before we solve any problems, we have to know what it is. Okay, so step 1 is notice what's stealing your bandwidth. I'm going to ask you to identify the main scarcity themes that you can identify, because it's always coming from scarcity. Is it time scarcity? Do you feel like you're always behind? Is it money scarcity? Like you feel like you don't have enough for whatever you're trying to do? Is it emotional scarcity? You feel like there's nobody to support you. Or control, you're uncertain about the future. Everybody is uncertain about the future, right? Everybody doesn't really know what's going to happen, but is it causing you that much stress that it's affecting the areas of your life? And also social scarcity, the feeling of not being included. Naming the scarcity and the type of scarcity reduces its grip because you start to understand what the problem is, and now you're not reacting emotionally, but you're proactively taking decisions in order to address whatever the issue is. So that's step 1. Step 1 is to notice what's stealing your bandwidth. Step 2, reduce the cognitive leaks. Now, what is a cognitive leak? These small things that drain bandwidth if left open, like open tabs in your brain, any unresolved messages, unclear responsibilities, any clutter, deadlines maybe without any plans to finish the task, or decisions that you have waiting to be made. These open loops take up space and they take up resources in your brain. Once you start to close these loops and you start to make the decisions that need to be made and start working on things and start clearing up things and resolving messages, you regain some of that bandwidth and you're able to complete everything else much quicker. So, step 1, notice what's stealing your bandwidth. 2, plug up all of the cognitive leaks. Step 3, pull some slack. In this case, slack means extra capacity that protects you from a cognitive collapse. The problem is that we run out of space. So it'll only make sense that a solution is to try to find more space. So what is a way to build slack, right? We could have time buffers. We could try to extend the deadline. We could try to buy ourselves some more time. There could be financial buffers. We could extend the date that we have to pay something. Maybe we can negotiate for more pay. There's emotional buffers. I'm sure you could find a friend to talk to, somebody that you can lean on, start building those relationships. Or physical buffers. Literally just getting more sleep or getting better food, moving and exercising. All of these things give you some more slack, they give you some more wiggle room, and it prevents you from tunneling and getting so hyper-focused on a scarcity because now you actually have more space. So step 1, notice what's stealing your bandwidth. Step 2, reduce the cognitive leaks, plug them all up. And step 3 is build some slack. Step 4 is a rule. It's use the one big thing rule. Bandwidth gets used up because we overcomplicate things, because we have too many things to do all at once, because we're overwhelmed, and because things are just too complicated. Bandwidth loves simplicity. So pick one meaningful thing that gets done each day. This thing must get done each day, and everything else is optional. Another thing that you could do is pick 3 things. Instead of having a to-do list, just have 3 things that you need to get through. The point of this step is to simplify. Simplify all of the complicated mess. Simplify all of the complicated mess and start closing off these loops to give yourself some bandwidth back. And lastly, step 5. Externalize what your brain shouldn't hold. You don't have an infinite amount of storage. Your storage space is limited, so start freeing up some RAM by writing down tasks instead of trying to remember everything. Maybe setting calendar reminders, or start working on routines so things become automatic instead of effortful and complicated and taking up all of this mental bandwidth and space. Start making checklists so you have something to refer to, or set up a template so it's easier and the work can flow. Automations, using notes instead of memory, these are all good tips to remove some of the load from your storage and to help you get things done with less effort, freeing up your bandwidth and allowing you to do more and be less overwhelmed in your day-to-day. So that's the 5 steps. That's the 5-step framework that you can use to beat the mental bandwidth problem. Notice what's stealing your bandwidth. Reduce cognitive leaks. Build some slack. Use the one big thing rule. And throw away what your brain shouldn't hold. Delegate it to something else. If you follow that framework, those steps, you will see a massive improvement in your decision making, your problem solving, your emotional regulation, your focus, and you'll feel a lot less overwhelmed. Now we know what the problem is, and we know how to fix it. But where do we even get started? What can we do now? What can we do today to start us on the path of beating the mental bandwidth problem? Well, thankfully, I have 3 experiments for you today. Experiment 1 is the bandwidth audit. Write down the top 3 things that is occupying the most mental space for you today. And then ask what small action would reduce the mental load of each item. Write down 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, 3 top things, and then next to those things, write down the small action. The second experiment is a 5-minute slack builder. So just spend 5 minutes creating a little bit of breathing room for you for the future. Maybe prepare something for tomorrow. Do your meal prep or prepare a bag. Maybe clearing out an area or scheduling a task. Setting a reminder on your phone of something that you need to do, or texting somebody, sending that message or that email that you've been meaning to get to. That 5 minutes of slack can save hours of spiraling. And finally, the third experiment is to close one loop. Choose one unresolved item in your life, whether that's an inbox or a bill that you need to pay or a call you need to make or a task or a message, and just finish it today. Get it done. Close it off. Once you do that, you'll start closing these loops over time, and you'll be building your bandwidth back, and you'll be able to do more and feel a lot more in control of your day-to-day. In thinking about what we've spoken about today, I want us to reflect on 5 questions. Okay? The first is, what scarcity theme or scarcity area affects my decisions the most? Do I know what it is? Maybe I need to think about it a little bit more. 2. When does my bandwidth collapse the fastest? 3. What small habit gives me the biggest cognitive relief? What works for me? It might not be the same for everybody, but figure out what works for you, and that might be a good starting place to start taking back some bandwidth. 4. Where can I build some slack in this week? What can I do to buy myself some breathing room? And 5. What's one story I tell myself that isn't true when I'm overwhelmed? What is this unproductive, counterproductive, really, self-sabotaging story that I'm telling myself that is just adding to the problems? Your mental bandwidth is limited. When life gets heavy, you don't become weaker. Your processing power gets rerouted. You're just juggling too much. Creating slack, closing loops, and reducing scarcity gives you back the version of yourself that you always were. Give your mind the space it needs to think clearly. Your best decisions come from a brain with room to breathe. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.